Welcome back to part 3 of my real grade Exia review. In part 1 I looked at the aesthetics, gimmicks and accessories, and here in part 2 I'll be looking at the posability and quality. So far so good, and Exia looks amazing with the awesome color and detailing that's characteristic of the real grade line. That's just how it looks. Let's check out how it performs. Real grade kits boast impressive articulation due to that flexible inner frame. For the most part, Exia is no exception. The limbs have exceptional articulation, but the waist and the hip joints are fairly limited. At the hips, forward movement of the legs is blocked by the skirting armor, but movement to the side is okay. But let's see how it does in some test poses. Straight away you can see how limited the hip articulation is here, as Exia can't sink that low into the splits, and doesn't get close to the ground at all, so no doing the splits for Exia. And that's a pitiful attempt at a squat, and that's as low as it can get. Again, Exia is limited at the hips, and this time it's due to the skirting armor on the front. Exia is meant to have human-like range of motion, and here it seems to be that of an 80-year-old with bad hips. This limited hip movement is a big letdown, as it undermines the awesome articulation of the legs and the feet. This also affects lunging poses as well, but even if he could get down all the way, the ankle joint sideways movement isn't that great. Exia has great articulation at the knees, so I needed a new test pose to demonstrate that, and Exia can do a wicked power slide. Moving up to the upper body now, Exia does quite well here considering the lack of articulation at the waist. You can raise the arm up quite high, but not as high as it could go, as it drops down a little bit after pushing it all the way up. And like with the Master Grade Exia, this is because of the holographic parts in here. As I've already mentioned, at the waist here there's almost no movement at all, but does make up for that with this side-to-side rocking motion at the GN drive, which has a very impressive range. There's quite a bit of movement here, and Exia can crunch down to the side quite well. Now in aerial pose, and Exia looks a bit wooden here, mainly due to not being able to spread those legs apart a bit more, and from not being able to raise that arm up more due to the holographic part. Also, the way the shield attaches to the forearm in here stops the arm from bending any further than this at the elbow. So sadly, articulation isn't one of Exia's strong points. It's got a mix of joints with great range and joints that are very limited. On to the last part now, and that's quality, one of the real grade line's strongest aspects. The color here is exceptional as always, and the color separation is great, with 2 shades of blue and the 2-tone white and grey. And to complement that, you get a hefty sheet of decals, the border of which can look a bit obvious from some angles, which might not appeal to some people. The holographic parts look really good considering this is a 1:144 kit, but the surface underneath the silver sticker is uneven and can lead to the sticker looking a bit crumpled. These holographic parts are much more flexible than those thicker ones on the Master Grade Exia, and they don't affect the articulation as much. Like I mentioned in part 2, the green clear parts look amazing on this kit, especially on the head. But the foil seal on the front head camera looks pretty bad. The surface detailing on Exia is very nice and will look great with some panel lining. However, the soft plastic of the RG inner frame is very prone to seam lines and mold lines, and it's also more difficult to remove them. The sections where the GN sword and the shield attached to the forearms is already starting to show some strain, and that's only been over the course of this review. As for joint strength, Exia is very solid, and you can see that nothing really moves around even when you shake it, so it won't have any issues holding any poses you put it in. Well, that's besides the shoulder joint, which drops down a bit. As for loose parts, it's pretty good for the most part, but be careful with the small white part which attaches here. Mine's already fallen off. And also be wary of the sheet of holographic parts, as they can detach from the sheet really easily. As that's the way I lost the holographic part for this side of the head. That's what it should look like in there. But on the whole, the quality of this kit is very high, and what you would expect from a real grade. I haven't used any glue on mine as I'm going to use it for the repair parts, but I'd highly recommend using glue to prevent any loss of small parts. So that's it for the real grade Exia, another fantastic addition to the already awesome real grade line. Exia is meant to be a light mobile suit with very high mobility and range of movement, but that isn't reflected in this kit, and the waist and hip articulation is really lacking. Also, this kit is a slightly more difficult build than usual, with a lot of tiny parts, and the holographic parts can be a bit finicky as well at times. But besides those aspects, it's a solid, great looking kit with some great accessories and has some awesome play value. In the future, I'd love to see more 00 releases, but I can't see anything but 00 itself coming out. But I'd love to be wrong. So if you love 00, Exia, real grades, or just model kits in general, I would highly recommend it. So see you next time.